Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen. Come on in. Today we are early. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. No technical difficulties either. If you're here and you're hearing me, say something. Just give me that you're being able to listen to me. We'll start at 8 sharp, 2 minutes from now. So we're gonna begin at 8 sharp today. We're on time. We are on time. Just looking at people to join in. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen. This episode of Thinker's Frequency. Good morning everybody. It's 8 a.m. finally. We're gonna begin any moment now. Any moment now. If you can hear this everything, if you can hear this properly, just say I can hear this properly. Just give me a heads up. Then we'll begin. Begin. Good morning. Good. As usual, LinkedIn has some delay. And everything else is alright. So we will. I think we'll start now, huh? 8-1. And here we go. Once again, if you're finding any problem, if you're finding any, yes, we can hear you. All right then. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Let's begin. Let's give you the show that you deserve. You deserve it. Perfecto. Hello everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We are having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We are working so hard. God knows we are. Doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our wives, our husbands, our friends, everybody. Not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Things got better, ladies and gentlemen, with Thinker's Frequency. This morning, we'll read between the lines things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Imagine this as a fun session where insights and analysis that don't lead to paralysis happen right before you start your day. Well, your imagination just came true. But before we begin, I'd like you to take a sip. We'll all have a sip together. We've got to have it together. That's the whole point of it. And we'll have that sip simultaneously. All you need for that sip is a cup, a mug, a glass, a tank, a chalice or stein, a canteen jug or flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. Today I'm having water with electrolytes. Very necessary. And here we go. My God. Dopamine hit of the day. Highlight. Perfect start. Couldn't possibly get any better, right? I hope you had the sip, and I hope it was something nice. It could be anything. It could be anything. So, today we begin at 7%, 7.4%. India's GDP growth is killing it. Q4, 7.4% Q4. And actually, this year we are looking at overall growth of 6.5% GDP. FY25, 6.5%, which is pretty amazing. It is extraordinary actually. And nominal growth is at 9.8%. Nominal growth 9.8, real growth 6.5. This is pretty amazing stuff. Not many people understand the difference between nominal growth and real GDP growth. So I'll tell you, real GDP is adjusted for inflation, and nominal GDP is not adjusted for inflation, essentially. So inflation is called a GDP deflator, because when you take out inflation, you lose a few points. So India is clearly the fastest growing major economy. That means that no other major economy is even close to this rate of growth, which is pretty amazing. But folks like Sabir Bhatia, sir, with all due respect, have come up with interesting concepts regarding GDP growth. Has anybody heard of Mr. Sabir Bhatia's comments on GDP? They were like fascinating concepts. He said, Indian GDP is a farce because let's say if I get something, I pay you X amount of money, and then you pay me X amount of money back, it's counted as two different transactions in GDP growth. So basically his point is that GDP calculation or GDP recording is absolutely wrong because there's duplicity of transactions which is being recorded. Oh my god. How can... कहाँ से आते हैं ये लोग? कौन है ये लोग? इस केस में I know कौन है ये लोग, but कहाँ से आते हैं ये लोग? ऐसी बातें कोई कैसे कर सकता है यार? How can anybody talk like that? For people who are in doubt if this can be true, are we really doing it? Are we just recording duplicate transactions and calling that GDP? No, we're not doing that. That cannot happen because it's against the principles of recording economy. There are standard protocols and principles which dictate how these things happen. And there are multiple bodies which sort of check each other's calculations. There's World Bank, there's IMF, there's Indian data, there's statistical data, there's manufacturing data. Everything is mixed to form this play. And no two transactions are getting recorded and being called as GDP. That's as dumb as it comes, man. It's unbelievable. I mean, as if we needed another proof, but it clearly shows that money is not an indicator of even basic understanding of things. Just because you made money doesn't mean that you understand anything. Anything. It's just bizarre that somebody like Sabir Bhatia, sir, could have said something like that, and a lot of people actually believe it. People, that clip is going viral, and people are saying, "Oh, he's right," and so on and so forth. Come on, man, come on. What the hell is wrong with you? It's not possible. At least talk science when you're talking science. But anyway, uh, earlier, what used to happen was that perception of these ultra successful and rich people used to be better. People used to believe that these people are actually smart because they've made a lot of money. They've like sold Hotmail for $400 million in 90s. That means that these people must be very smart, and they must know something that other people don't, and so on and so on and so on. But in the age of social media, what has happened is that these people have exposed themselves. You know, somebody calls them, "Sir, please do a podcast with me." They're like, "Okay," and then they start rambling on, and most of what that comes out of their mouths is just absolute BS, and that's recorded and then broadcasted, and then it goes viral, and they just expose themselves. It's not just him, it's not just him. A lot of people just expose themselves as total idiots, and that's a shame. But that's a very good thing, because then you know that things are not as tight as you assumed they were. You know, it's not genius, it's not foresight, it's not insight. They just got lucky with money, clearly. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with getting lucky with money. Uh, Speaking of luck and money, I got uh, Miss Shreya Raskar. Somebody called Shreya Raskar actually donated to me. Uh, Considering, I mean, I wrote an article on Oyo or something, and she basically donated to to that article as a patron, which is so sweet, which is so sweet, right? So thank you, Miss Shreya Raskar. Thanks a lot. And in that donation note, she had written a very good note. Thank you for doing all this research, and thank you for making this research available for us. That's very sweet of you. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Yet again, speaking of money and getting lucky, Ola's stock went down. Ola's stock went down 10%. If you were watching yesterday's today Thinker's Frequency with Nishant Mittal, of course, I told you that this was gonna happen, right? I just clearly said that Ola's stock right now, it's 8 a.m., 8:15, 9:15 the market opens. You can expect the stock to go down, and that's exactly what happened. Exactly what happened. Now, question is, if I knew Ola's stock was gonna go down, why didn't I short it? Why didn't I short Ola stock? I would have made money. I would have been a bit happier. If money causes happiness, it would have been nice. No, but I didn't do that, unfortunately. I forgot. I had so much of work. I forgot to short Ola stock, and I forgot to make 10% in a day on my capital. But yeah, maybe what if the stock didn't go down, right? As planned. What if it was already priced in? You can never peg. You can never say what's going to happen in the stock market, at least tomorrow. So that's pretty interesting. But what's also interesting is that there's a guy called Jim Cramer. If you know about Jim Cramer, do people know about Jim Cramer here? Jim Cramer is kind of a legend in the stock market analysis game. So he's a TV presenter at CNBC, and this guy has been predicting stocks and stuff. And whenever he predicts something, it always goes opposite. So if he says this is gonna go up, it goes down. If it's gonna go down, it goes up. So they've created some kind of a Jim Cramer inverse index. So whatever he says, they just invert it, and then they track what happens. And legend says that Jim Cramer inverse is beating the index. So the most popular host in the stock market business, the most popular presenter, is popular for is famous for going wrong. What if it's a strategy? What if Jim Cramer purposefully, he's a supervillain, and he purposefully gives wrong cues on TV in front of live audience, international media, just so he could avenge for some mama's sins. Sounds like a Hindi movie, but can possibly be. You never know. You never know. So, Ola Electric stock has gone down. Of course, India is growing. India has grown. It's interesting. In FY22, India had 9.7% growth because COVID's base was low. FY23 7.6%, 24 9.2%, and FY25 6.5%. That's, my God, a nominal 9.3% or 9.4%. That's huge, man. That's huge. I don't know what's gonna happen, but till the time this is happening, it's pretty awesome. The thing is, the only problem is that, as I said before, this GDP and the per capita that India stands at, $2,800, doesn't look like we're a $2,800 per capita income country, because there's so much of dirt lying around. There's so much of administrative corruption. There's so much of Babu Shahi, which is by default corrupt. It's pretty bad, but at a macro level, we are doing very well. And no matter what anybody says, if you're doing well at macro, some of it does trickle down. Speaking of trickling down, Shapoorji Pallonji has backed a 3.4 billion deal engineered by Deutsche, which is pretty interesting. As I said in one of the episodes before, Shapoorji Pallonji had been struggling with a lot of debt. And it was very difficult for the company. At one point, it wanted to sell its Tata stock. It wanted to list some of there was a very big conflict with Tata as well, because they are like junior partners at Tata Sons. They hold a lot of stake in Tata. So they finally been able to raise this debt from 3 different capital pools. And what this debt is for is basically refinancing their earlier debt. So they had taken some debt earlier which they were not being able to pay back, and now they've taken this debt to pay for that debt. And the interest rate on this debt is pretty mind-boggling actually. It's 19.75%. The bond is at 19.75% and paying to be paid at 3-year maturity. My God, that's some heavy debt. But all the luck to Shapoorji Pallonji. That's what we can say. Not that they need our best wishes, but okay. Vodafone Idea dials up loss to 7,000 crore in Q4. Will raise up to 20,000 crore more. What the hell is happening with Vodafone Idea, man? It's just pretty amazing. And what's more amazing is that the government, Indian government, is like the 49% shareholder in Vodafone Idea. So we are essentially the owners of Vodafone Idea. And they're just draining money. They have no scope of making money. They're continually losing subscribers. It's an absolute shit show. But they're still alive, and the government is taken stake in it. Why? I know why. So why the government wants to save Vodafone Idea is that if Vodafone Idea dies, then India becomes a two telecom play, and a country of 1.4 billion, uh, just two telecom operators. That's a very very risky play, right? So you don't want that, and that's why the country wants Vodafone Idea to survive as a private entity, as a third player, so that it can be a better market, because there should always be more than two players as far as telecom is considered. However, it's not a private player anymore, right? It's just namesake private. If 49% of it is owned by the government, how is it a private company? And if it is a private company, uh, how far is the government going to go to save it? Because the government bought its shares at a premium. When the shares were trading at six rupees or 7 rupees, the effective cost of government's acquisition of those shares came out to be 10 or 11 rupees. So the government already paid a premium for Vodafone Idea shares. How far is it gonna go? And by the way, why Airtel? So Sunil Mittal sir, who's basically the founder of Airtel, wanted Idea to survive. Why? Because Industars, Airtel had a company called Industars which used to run tower operations. Their major customer was Vodafone Idea, and they had a lot of dues of Industars. So if Idea went down, all of their 1,000 crore plus dues, the Industar dues, wouldn't have been recovered, and that would have been very sad for Airtel. So they wanted this third player to survive, even though it's just draining everybody's money and it's gonna drain government's money too. And very interestingly, uh, government already has another player, right? BSNL. So what happens to that? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Nobody knows, sir. Anyway, hotels are amping up preparations for public debut as Oyo is there. Leela had a successful listing. Congratulations to them. Legendary company had a successful listing, and that's interesting. Center has reined in the fiscal deficit to 4.8%. That's great. Again, that's pretty good. There's a legal battle happening at Wegovy launch. It's a semaglutide drug which Dr. Reddy's has been importing and manufacturing. It's gonna start. So the company which originally makes this has filed a lawsuit that we are gonna come here, and that can't happen. But there's some sort of legal tussle here because, according to some law, company can Dr. Reddy's can make this drug where the original company doesn't operate. But then there's counter to that, which basically is saying that Patent Act applies, so you cannot make or offer sale by importing a drug. So it's a complicated case, and it's gonna happen. In 2020, Wegovy posted $8.4 billion in global sales. So Novo Nordisk, the company of which makes Wegovy, says its patent is being infringed. Again, Dr. Reddy says it's allowed to make the drug where this company doesn't exist. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Domestic market. Defendants have a license to manufacture the impugned drug, which was granted in December 24. Yeah. So these people took the license, and now these people have made a patent claim against those guys. That's pretty interesting. Legal battles are always very interesting when it comes to these things. Who makes money? Lawyers make money, right? China has violated tariff agreement with US, not surprisingly. Donald Trump. So that's very interesting. What's happening? You know what's happening with China? So what they did was, according to the tariff agreement, China was supposed to let the rare earth mineral export happen without any problem, right? So it didn't let that happen. It sort of slowed it down. It slowed it down, and America started feeling the pinch because if you've slowed your rare earth mineral export to America, it means that there's going to be a problem when it comes to semiconductor manufacturing and a lot of other things manufacturing, EV manufacturing. So China very sneakily did that. They stopped their exports of these rare earth minerals, and that sort of started hurting America. And then they said that no man, you violated your violated your tariff agreement, and we're gonna screw you back. And now it's come to another standoff. Like, we agreed on a deal, you're not coming on a deal, we're gonna screw you. They say no, you were not fair with your agreements, and you've done this and you've done that. All these companies haggle like people at the end of the day. It's a China is very, very sneaky when it comes to this. Interestingly, China hasn't blocked out its API, active pharmaceutical ingredients export. Because if China does anything to its API exports, you can expect US to die, essentially. Because API, the active pharmaceutical ingredient, is what makes drugs, right? Is what makes antibiotics. It's what makes everything work. And China controls 90% of the supply of API to US. So 90% of China. So some people say, and even India, some people say that if China stops the API export to these countries, these there's no need for war because these countries will just die by themselves. There will not be any supply of drugs, very critical life-saving drugs, and everybody will just drop off. That's how strong China is, uh, as far as controlling things are considered. And by the way, it's not just US and China right now. This same rare earth mineral problem is being faced by Indian automotive manufacturing companies. So, if you've read about it, well, you don't need to because I'm talking, you're talking to me. So, I can tell you. Bajaj and a lot of other companies, I said this yesterday or day before, I don't remember, but they've said that we really need a rare earth magnet which goes into the batteries of the electric vehicles that these people make. And that magnet supply has been stopped. That magnet supply is not happening from China. That shipment is stuck at Chinese ports. Now, if that shipment is stuck at Chinese ports and these people are not being able to get that magnet, they'll not be able to make the electric vehicles. And if they're not being able to make that electric vehicle, there'll be a huge supply chain issue, right? So that they're literally begging to the government, and the government is saying we are supporting, we are going to get that rare earth magnet so that you can make your EVs, so that you can make money, so that the supply. And these people are saying that end of May, their supplies, their storage, I mean whatever, their stock of rare earth magnets will be out. So it's just a matter of few days. They need to get that thing off the Chinese ports so that Indian EV market doesn't just, you know, have another COVID kind of a moment, which is bloody interesting if you think about it, right? A country having so much of power, it's just amazing. India AI, three more startups to build indigenous foundation models. Well, I wish them luck. I wish them luck because Sarvam AI didn't have a very good day. It launched itself in only 36 or like 2 digit or 3 digit downloads, and they had worked hard. They had so much of backing, and they the response has been very very depressing to say the least. So I don't know what's happening, but I hope they figure something out. And India AI leads to a lot of good outcomes. Nykaa Q4 profit doubles to 20 crore, 19 crore actually. Like they made a revenue of 2000 crores, and their net profit is like 20 crores. That's a 1% margin business. What kind of a business is this, man? 1%? 1% net? That's. But anyway, the company stands. And if you remember, Nykaa inflated its profits right before its IPO, and then there was a 99% decline in its profits. 99% decline. So they beefed up their profits right before the IPO. Then they listed, and just after the IPO, when they opened the books, it was a 99% decline. So that's saying something, man. And this is what a lot of companies are doing as far as IPO positioning is considered, which is hilarious. Healthy snacking boost brand wealth. Apparently, Whole Truth is ended FY25 with 200 crores. 200 crores is a lot of sales, man. I tried one of their bars. It was just so horrible. I had to puke. I like Yoga Bar. That's very nice for me. Yoga Bar is nice. Although Whole Truth's protein whey, it's pretty nice. I've been led to believe. So the company must be doing something right. They're growing, and healthy snacking is growing faster than regular snacking. But you know why it's growing faster than regular snacking? Why is healthy snacking growing faster than regular snacking? Anybody? Anybody has thoughts on that? A lot of people think it's because Indians have started eating healthy. But no, that is not the case. The case is it's a very small base. Indian snacking market is like many, many, many $billion. And Indian healthy snacking is a few hundred crores. So of course it grows. And also unprofitably. It's not that Whole Truth has made profits at its 200 crore sales. No, it's very negative. But when you have a small base, you can grow. And it can actually look like the business is much more healthy. Healthy, like the snack which you're selling, than it is. So that's that. Latvia, here we come. So a lot of rich Indians are going to Europe, and since going to Europe is very expensive, the usual countries, Latvia, the Eastern Europe country, is proving to be nice. It's cheaper. There's no bureaucratic hurdle. There's no. It just costs 60,000 to 250,000 euros, which is better than Portugal, which costs about a half a million euros, and Greece. Greece is good. Portugal is not, but Greece is good. So a lot of rich Indians just find a way out of the country, which is how it is, but which is very sad, because if rich Indians continue to escape India in whatever ways they can and whatever ways available, it doesn't paint a very good picture for the country, right? Because rich people are supposed to pay for a lot of things. One rich guy living in Delhi makes a lot of opportunities for a lot of not so rich people. But if he just packs his bags and goes to Europe, or goes to Canada, or goes to Australia, or goes to wherever, it suddenly leaves a lot of people without opportunities. So all that GDP growth, everything falls flat just as one rich guy leaves. So that's a bit of a problem. And India needs to figure this out, man, because they are not stopping. They're willing to go anywhere, just instead of staying in India. Buyers put their money on rock as gold prices peak. Gold is going up, and lending on gold is also going up. I discussed this in some episode of Thinker's Frequency, which is awesome, right? Because these things just keep getting clearer. So if you've been listening the last 5 days and today you're listening the 6 days, concepts get much clearer for me as well as you. So it's a two-way street. I get to learn by reading it regularly, and you get to learn by just listening to it. Hotel companies' revenue per room is up 16% in quarter one. That's good news. Good news. Good time to be in the hospitality business. Unless COVID picks up yet again. I hope it doesn't, man. I hope it doesn't. COVID really screwed me. Music royalty kitty crosses 700 crore in 2024. I hope some of that falls on me. I have a million plus streams on Spotify, YouTube, and all of these places put together. And how much did I make in total royalties? I guess it's some 20,000 or 30,000, 40,000 rupees max. 25,000 probably. I'll have to check. But I've made so little money. It costs like 1 lakh rupees to make a song. Right? If you consider everything. Most of it just goes to the producer. I mean, the sound engineer. We call sound engineers are producers in music lingo. So when you think of producer, you're like a lot of gold chains, a lot of, bracelets, and like, main tujhe star banayega. But that's not how music production works. When we talk about music producer, we basically mean sound engineer, the guy who does the grunt work of setting the levels and stuff. So a lot of it goes to the music producer, a lot of it goes to the video guy, and then it costs 1 lakh rupees to make a song. And I've like made 20 songs, right? And I've made like 25,000 rupees. That's obviously not a good investment. That went well. Not. Anyway. Kanakya Heinz tire for 3,000 crore project in Mumbai. 3,000 crore office project. There's a lot of real estate investment happening in Mumbai still, which beats me. Because Mumbai is... The infrastructure is really bad, man. Unfortunately. Mumbai is a beautiful place. I love Mumbai. It's my favorite city. And I had a very good time when I was there. But the fact that these cities like Delhi and Mumbai can attract so much of real estate investment beats me. Because Delhi is unlivable due to pollution, and Mumbai it's a very difficult place to live due to whatever it has for infrastructure problems. Maybe these guys are very bullish on how the government solves this infrastructure issue, you know. Maybe it's that, but I don't know. It just beats me. I was sort of looking at a pop of Delhi's real estate bubble, which has happened by the way, but not as much due to the pollution issue and everything. Magnet crisis. Auto giants rush to China for rare earth rescue, as I just told you, right? It's a huge thing, but they need something for their batteries. It's a magnet, and that magnet need is very important for them. And that magnet is not being available, and their stock is out, and it's gonna be a bit of a problem if they don't get in time. You remember, COVID had all these issues with the supply chain, so that's gonna happen. Now, MMRDA to Supreme Court has scrapped Mumbai infra tender process. There was a 16,000 crore rupee project. So what had happened was another interesting legal case, right? What had happened was that MMRDA had given a tender for some, it was a project, a very big project, and what happened was they just disqualified L&T from that bid, and pretty arbitrarily they just let L&T go. Now L&T is the company which has made the Central Vista thing, which has like shortlisted for the Central Vista thing. So how did that company get delisted, or let's say disqualified in a technical bid for this MMRDA project of 16,000 crore rupees? It's like India's largest EPC player, right? So L&T said that this is not happening. We just got to know when we were doing this. This is this is arbitrary. This is illegal. So they went to High Court. High Court said you got to look at that. You cannot possibly do that in such a way where you just do not inform L&T that they've been disqualified from that project and this just disqualify them. That's not happening, sir. So L&T went to court. Court said there's a lot of public money involved. Take a look at it. And now MMRDA has come around and we've scrapped the tender process and we're gonna begin again and so on and so forth. So L&T submits technical bid December 2023. May 13, 24, L&T learns of disqualification in SC hearing. CJI questions tender fairness May 27. May 31, 24, MMRD agrees to scrap tender. Oh, these people have mentioned dates wrong. It's 25. Disposal L&T plea. So now it's gonna happen again, right? They didn't get any communication for disqualification. They just got, sorry sir, your bid is not gonna open anywhere. Bid opened without informing L&T. So that was the case. These things happen. These things happen a lot. Now they've been happening less, Earlier it used to be like literal jungle raj. People just used to bid and nobody used to know how these bids are happening. Like Gangs of Wasipur. If people have watched that. Bhavik Shah says, it's all about networking. What you can get in Mumbai is better than most cities. That I agree. A lot of people say that I should shift to Mumbai because a lot of music thing happens in Mumbai, and Delhi's music scene is dead, and I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. But Delhi's home, unfortunately. But yeah, networking is. I read a book called Laws of Scale. Laws of Scale said a city is basically immortal. A city never dies. And if a city crosses a certain threshold, the network effects of a city are impossible to beat. So let's say if you make a company can die, right? I discussed this as well in one of previous episodes of Thinker's Frequency, that a company is finite. Someday it's gonna go out of business. Most definitely. It's certain. What doesn't die is a university. If you open an education institute, that's supposed to run. And museums, art museums, they're supposed to run. They have a longer life because then they become objects of cultural significance, right? And in case of an education institute, it's a social significant project. Something which also doesn't die is a city. So a lot of rich billionaires or ultra rich, like richest people in the world who've conquered money, for legacy they're often looking at making cities. They make educational institutes, they invest in museums, they create museums, art museums, and then they create cities because the city never dies. And a very big example of this is Gujarmal Modi. There's a book I've read by Sonu Bhasin ma'am. She also came in one of my I read this book episodes where she wrote about Gujarmal Modi. Now Modis are the Godfrey Phillips people. Godfrey Phillips is a cigarette. I don't smoke, so I'll have trouble remembering the brands that they have. Let me search GPI brands. India. GPI brands in India. So Godfrey Phillips has Marlboro. Yeah, they have Marlboro in India. So Gujarmal Modi was the founder of this Modi empire, okay? And he started this company, which is, some of that is now Godfrey Phillips. IPL, Lalit Modi is also the grandson of Gujarmal Modi. So what he did after successfully establishing that company was starting a city called Modinagar, Moradabad. Modinagar is a city that he founded. And a lot of people have founded city, right? Tata has Tata Nagar and so on and so forth. So that's something. Cities never die. That's very interesting. I hope you had fun learning about that. By the way, Sonu Bhasin ma'am is back with another book on dalmias. So she's an Indian business historian. She writes a lot of books about Indian businesses. So the first book she wrote was The Inheritors. Inheritors was about the family businesses of India, who are huge and significant, right? So great stories, absolutely wonderful book, and it was just amazing. And then after Inheritors, she went on to write a lot of great books. One of them is uh, Gujarmal Modi, the legend of Gujarmal Modi. Then there's a book on Berger Paints founder, the Dhingras, the impossible life of Dhingras. It's a very good book again. And now she's written a book on Dalmia, which is also pretty amazing. So she writes this book, and it's very important that people read these books because India has no uh, knowledge of its businesses, the history of its businesses. How did these businesses come to be? It's a very interesting thing, which not many people know about. So that's that. NBFC's rate transmission to end users weaker than banks. Of course, NBFCs have to make more money. They're a riskier business. Bank credit moderates across sectors. Skoda, Spandan. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So Ola Electric's future is dim, as we've already discussed, and people are saying Goldman has a buy rating on the stock. Goldman still has a buy rating on the stock. It says you should buy it. So, who wants to listen to Goldman? I don't. I don't. Anyway, fiscal deficit target is on play. 4.8% is great. We used to have great fiscal deficit, but government stopped the capex spending a little, just to make sure that this doesn't happen. A lot of good things happening on the macroeconomic front, man. But at the end of the day, it just goes nowhere because of all the corruption, right? Everybody's tired of corruption, but what can we do about it? Hello, says Knowledge with Ayushi. Hi. uh, that's great. We've discussed a lot of things. Diesel exports to Southeast Asia highest in 4 years. That's great. Supreme Court verdict may hike tax burden on OTT platforms and gaming apps. Okay. Right now they have a 28% tax rate, right? So Supreme Court is looking at different aspects of broadcasting, OTT, and gaming might just be taxed a little more. I think, I don't know. Yeah, but you should tax these companies as much as possible. As much as possible. National manufacturing mission to happen soon. National manufacturing mission to happen soon. India needs a lot of manufacturing push. No surprise there. So that's about it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope I didn't miss out anything important. I'm sure I did. There's a lot of, uh, you know, there's so much happening in the world. I can't possibly cover everything. But I hope it was valuable. I hope you liked the session. We started on time. No technical difficulties at all. I hope you could hear me properly. Oh, no, I covered the gold loan bit, right? Gold loans are rising. Gold prices are rising. Everybody's like, they just give out jewelries, get the loan, make purchases. Somehow people always pay the gold back. Gold, ladies and gentlemen, never loses its value. So yeah, that's about it. That's what was the name of the author who wrote the book on Gujarmal Modi? Sonu Bhasin. Sonu Bhasin is the author who wrote those books. A lot of books. The Inheritors, uh, The Legend of Gujarmal Modi, the this book on Berger Paints founder Mr. Dhingra. What is it called? Unstoppable. A lot of good books. Inheritors is a very good book because it has short stories on all of these businesses. By the way, Dalmia Bharat got saved from a tax shock that it was supposed to get. An interesting story about Dalmia, which I read in Mam's book, was that Dalmia's, the founder of Dalmia, was the owner of Times of India. But Dalmia was an enemy of Jawaharlal Nehru. And as India got independence and Jawaharlal Nehru became the Prime Minister, Dalmia got screwed in the rear, due to which he had to divest a lot of his businesses. One of those businesses was Times of India, the media company, which he had to divest by actually marrying his daughter off to Jains. Hence, the ownership of uh, uh, Times of India and those people by Jains. Now, very interestingly, the hire of Jains is essentially has married Satyan Gajwani, who's leading Times Internet. So once again, uh, something might happen again. You get it? Dalmia's married their daughter to Jains, who got Times of India. Jains married their kid to somebody called Satyan Gajwani, who is leading Times Internet. So maybe it's a family thing. This is what I learned in that book. Thanks. Sure. Karamveer writes, any thoughts on sports in India? Like, is India ready for 2036 Olympics? Well, that's a heavy question. Is India ready for 2036 Olympics? Actually, 2036 is too far off. It's too far off. Right now we are at 2025. We have 11 years to 2036, right? So ideally, should India should be ready, man. If India still isn't ready for Olympics in 2036, what does it say about India? In 2036, based on current growth rates, you know what the size of India's GDP would be? It's at currently 4 trillion, right? And it's growing 6 to 7%. So in 10 years, it should be double, essentially. Almost double. So India should be an $8 trillion economy by 2036. Can or should an $8 trillion economy not host the Olympics? Especially when it's the largest country by population? That's a travesty. That would be a travesty. I mean, that should definitely happen, you know. That should definitely happen, in my opinion. Hi Nishant, may I ask what's your take on the gold prices on a 1 to 5 years time frame? As a lot of analysts were predicting it had already topped out for now. So gold follows uncertainty. Growth in gold is all about uncertainty. If things screw in the regular economy, gold sort of picks up. And that's what happened, since things got so uncertain here and there, and right now US dollar is at stake. I mean, you never know. According to Ray Dalio, 2026 by 2030, there's a serious risk of US dollar losing its relevance as the global currency. Now, if that happens, or even the possibility of it happening, makes gold very attractive, right? So gold is solid, but otherwise gold is as stable as anything, right? So I think it's good. I think it's good. Any other questions? We still have some time before we start our day at 9 a.m. 8:51. Though I began at time, on time today. I wasn't late at all, thankfully. And otherwise, somehow some or the other technical difficulties always take over, and it becomes very difficult for us. But yes. Today, YouTube and LinkedIn, everything went solid. So, I'm just, I'll just wait for a second. Have the simultaneous sip before we go on with our day. By the way, a big tribute to Scott Adams, sir. He couldn't do his coffee with Scott Adams, which, by the way, is where the simultaneous sip comes from. It's not my original. Simultaneous sip, line by line, is Scott Adams, sir. All tributes to him. Unfortunately, because of his cancer, because of his pain, he couldn't really do it yesterday, which made me really sad, man. Such a nice guy. Anyway, if there are any questions, you can go. I'm sorry, you can go with the questions. Otherwise, we'll go. A lot of people joined in today. I didn't think people are going to be joining in on a weekend. A lot of people on LinkedIn, 10 people continuously. That's nice. Are weekends more comfortable than weekdays? I thought like 8 a.m. on a weekday is right before you start your day, right? So you punch in at 9 a.m. So 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. you can listen to this while you're driving, while you're doing whatever. Learn something. And it leads to everything good. But apparently, uh, a lot of people on the weekend. But that debt has been there since almost 20 years, right? Even in 2010, it was around 15 trillion. As we know how US works, they might just print more money and pass on the inflation into the whole world. Asks Mr. Deepak Gurram. Deepak Gurram has a question, a very valid question, that debt has been there for 20 years. Even 2010, it was 15 trillion. As we know how US works, they might just print more money and pass on the inflation to the whole world. Uh, that's what he says. So I have a very good explanation. I've read a book on this, which I would recommend you read as well if you want to learn it in depth. And that book is by Ray Dalio. It's called The Changing World Order. You know how debt cycles grow up and down. So what happens is that US has now, yes, you're right, US just can print money, and that printed money can give inflation to the whole world. But the problem is that US debt has exceeded $30 trillion dollars. Now those $30 trillion dollars, the interest of that loan is higher than their defense budget now, apparently. You know, so every day US is moving towards a death spiral as far as their debt is considered. Because if US defaults on its debt, the cascading effects of that could wreck the economy. You can only print money till the time it's valuable, right? But if somebody has bought your bonds and then those bonds become worthless, that person loses money. And if that person loses money, who's going to absorb his shock? That's a very big problem, right? And Ray Dalio has pointed out that he studied history and how these empires rise and fall is that at one point the debt which these empires have becomes unsustainable. And when that happens, when the debt becomes unsustainable and these countries start defaulting on that debt and they're not being able to pay that debt back, that's when everything starts going south, right? So that's the problem. I hope, Deepak, I answered your question. It's not $10 trillion or 20 trillion or 15 trillion, it's 30 trillion. And the interests of that debt, till the time they can pay the interest of that debt, principal can wait, but the interest needs to be paid. And if they can't pay the interest and if they start defaulting, everything gets screwed. Weekend feels comfortable, says Rajakumar. All right. Webhub says, do you think AI will replace humans in jobs? Yeah, 100%. 100%. Absolutely. There shouldn't be any doubt as far as that is considered. And anybody who tells you otherwise is either lying or is just lying. Nobody can be that stupid. Recently, Eric Schmidt came out, said AI is gonna create new jobs. What new jobs? I recently met an entrepreneur who said he just replaced like 30% of his employees just basis AI. So AI is gonna. I'll tell you why these people lie about jobs. So I was at an event of TIE, the Indus entrepreneurs, and the MD of Intel India, sorry, Nvidia India, was at that event. And he was giving people stories that when fire was invented, people feared it, but fire created a lot of opportunities. Then came the industrial revolutions when machines came over. People said that machines are gonna take over human jobs, but they ended up creating more jobs than before, and so on and so forth. So this is the same case with uh, AI and so on and so forth. And I'm like, and I raised my hand and said, "Sir, you're talking about fire, and you're talking about industrial revolution, uh, but those things are not applicable. Industrial revolution, the prospect of machines entering and manufacturing things was based on the concept of productivity. Like if you have a machine, if you have a tool, you can be more productive, right? Machines, if you have a big plant, you can make more. You can make more, be more productive, produce more. That was the philosophical basis of machines, right? That you can make more. But the philosophical basis of AI is not that you can make more. The philosophical foundation of AI is not productivity, it is singularity. Singularity means basically exceeding human intelligence, leaving human intelligence behind. That is singularity. So, foundationally and philosophically, AI talks about replacing humans, not adding more, not making it more productive. And everybody knows this. Even then, people choose to lie. You know why? Because the next conversation is more difficult. Let's say now everybody agrees that AI is gonna kill jobs and people are gonna be left jobless. What happens then? What happens then? That question is more complicated. That question is a very difficult question. What do you do? What do people do when work has been taken away from their lives? You know, how does society stand? How do people get meaning out of their lives without work? Can is UBI a real possibility, universal basic income, where government just basically hands out free money to people so that they can spend? What happens when people go out of work? Those questions are very hard. And these people don't want to answer those questions. Possibly because they don't have the answers. And so instead of saying something honest like, hey, I don't know, they just lie about it, that it's going to create new jobs and stuff like that, which is intellectual dishonesty. It's bad, it's sad, it's pathetic. But uh, Peter Thiel is one of the very few intellectuals who's been very honest about it. So cheers to Peter Thiel, sir. He's a hero of mine. Thank you, Nishant. I'll definitely read the book. Cheers, cheers. No problem, Deepak. No problem. Weekend feels comfort. How to survive this? Well, I don't have any clue. How to survive this? I don't know, man. How to survive when AI takes away your job is a question. Is how big is the world economy? Size of world. Hello, I guess I went offline for a second, right? I'm sorry about that. If that happened, I didn't mean to do that. I don't know why it happened. I guess my internet just gave up on me. But yeah, I was looking at the size of one economy, $100 trillion. So Webber, How to survive that is $100 trillion question, to which I have no answer. I don't have any answers to that. So that's about it, man. That's about it, folks. Thank you so much for joining the sixth episode of Thinkers Frequency. I hope you had a nice time. I hope you have a beautiful day. Bye bye.